Questo è un luogo che genera dialogo,
Qualcuno che si impegna, che si batte.
che approfondisce la conoscenza e sostiene la fiducia. È un crocevia dove si incontra chi desidera il vero, il bello, il giusto e il bene. È una testimonianza di speranza nel cuore ferito del presente. E tutto questo
proporre con la propria vita.
esiste anche grazie a te. Questo è un luogo che genera dialogo,
Qualcuno che si impegna, che si batte.
che approfondisce la conoscenza e sostiene la fiducia. È un crocevia dove si incontra chi desidera il vero, il bello, il giusto e il bene. È una testimonianza di speranza nel cuore ferito del presente. E tutto questo
Proporre con la propria vita.
esiste anche grazie a te. Questo è un luogo che genera dialogo,
Qualcuno che si impegna, che si batte.
che approfondisce la conoscenza e sostiene la fiducia. È un crocevia dove si incontra chi desidera il vero, il bello, il giusto e il bene. È una testimonianza di speranza nel cuore ferito del presente. E tutto questo
proporre con la propria vita.
esiste anche grazie a te.
Buongiorno, benvenuti a tutti a questo incontro.
Good morning and welcome. Welcome everyone to this meeting entitled Circular Economy and Social Value, Combating Waste to Respond to Poverty in Italy and Europe. This meeting is the result of the will of the so-called button systems of the third sector that try to recover different goods and redistribute them to those who need them, those who do not have access to them. But this meeting is also due to another aspect, the so-called Gadda Law, number 106, which was approved in Italy in 2016. This law dealt with the fight against waste, social economy, environmental impact, and sustainability, giving priorities to certain principles, the same principles we are going to deal with today. So this is, as you can see from the title of this meeting, is based on a series of themes and elements. So we will try to discover the synergy among these elements. We talk about circular economy and all that it means in terms of sustainability, recycling. We talk about waste, how our world, the world we live in, can produce adequately and then also consume adequately. We talk about sustainability, and well, this means something that lasts in time. That's what sustainability is. So the technological obsolescence, the use of resources are all fundamental themes. We talk about social economy, and here we have to understand if it is economy that has a social dimension or the society that has an economic dimension. That is a very difficult debate. But we also talk about poverty, because we are in a situation where a significant part of people who live in this country, in Europe, in the whole world, live in difficult conditions. These people do not have access to the life conditions that everybody should have access to. So, well, this is a term that of sustainability is something that deals with different aspects. We have more than 5 million people in Italy that are at risk in terms of food poverty. That means that these people don't have access to a fundamental resource as food in an adequate way. We are going to talk about this with a very important panel. We have Maria Chiara Gadda, member of the Italian Republic Parliament, who is a supporter of this Law 106. Paola Garrone, professor of business and industrial economics at the Politecnico of Milan, and that works with the different entities of the third sector. Jens B. Olsen, General Manager of Novo Nordisk Italia. Antonella Sperna, Vice President of the European Parliament. Paolo Venturi, Director of the Icon Research Center at the University of Bologna. And Franco Spicciariello, Director of Public Policy, Central and Eastern Europe. 30 countries are under his responsibility in terms of public policies. So this is a very distinguished panel. So there are some speakers who work for the institutions, for enterprises, or well, I think I have already said too much. I will now leave the floor to Professor Venturi. I ask him if we can actually try to explain better those words I have spoken before. So what is the relationship between a circular economy and social economy? Professor, you have the floor.
No, il microfono non...
There's a technical problem. Here we are. So I was saying, well, it's a big challenge for me to explain these words in 6 minutes. So 3 different steps, 2 minutes each. First step, we are not talking about good practice alone. The risk here is that these themes are seen as the most important part of entrepreneurship, of the third sector. These are themes that have their own relevance, but in some ways, when you have to decide what the rules of the game are, these themes are never part of these rules. Today's experience is particularly significant because it goes beyond this idea and it tells us how the whole thing should be organized. We're not talking about just making waste use more efficient, but we're trying to speak about how to generate value in profit and non-profit terms. So this is the challenge. At this level, we have a challenge. The institutions that want the best of the public interest, as well as enterprises, are in the same situation. Generating value is a responsibility of every single individual, but it has to be shared. So this is the fundamental concept of a circular economy, which is linked to relationship, because it can be circular if there is a relationship between different individuals and subjects. And then we have another concept, that of donations, which is based on trust. When, for instance, you deliver some food to someone, you are doing an action that involves you as a person. So we are not talking about something that is superfluous, but we are talking about new ways to guarantee growth and development. What is the value of what circular economy proposes to us today? The work that is done by, for instance, food banks, we have figures that are really important. We are leaders in Italy in terms of circular economy, also because we are a country that lacks a lot in raw materials. 600 billion euros is the amount spent by Italy for raw materials, but we are above the European average, above 82% in terms of recycling of wastes. This percentage, however, is not enough. This is also true for donations. So from entrepreneurship and to the economy of the third sector that has 360,000 organizations, 93 billion in added value, and is therefore characterized by an economic value. So what is the challenge here? And well, the challenge is to put these two value chains together. There is not an economic utility and a social utility. Marco, you said, what is the difference between what is social and what is economic? Well, I answer as the economist Bettini would answer. Production is a social factor because if we cannot produce, we reduce competitivity, and donations as well create the necessary conditions to make the economy thrive. And then my last observation, the last step, why is this system extremely efficient today for poverty? Because poverty today is not just the lack of goods. It has to do with a lack of relationships, opportunities, meaning. So, well, according to this logic, surplus becomes more the final target, but it is the beginning of a new relationship. All the research studies on food poverty show, then Paula will talk about this better than I can do, these goods have a value because they satisfy a real need, but it also makes it possible to create relationships. 40% of poverty in Italy, from 4.1 million to 5.7 million in the last 10 years, is due to some factors that people find in their own lives because of where they are born or the opportunities they have. So we need to really make a change of mind. We don't talk about profit and non-profit. We have to create policies that make this harmony between the different subjects the starting point. Otherwise, there won't be a chance to overcome these challenges. Very well. Thank you, Professor. You also respected your allotted time, and you gave the starting kick to this debate. We need to talk about so many different things under the same umbrella. So now I turn to Paola Garrone, who has always cooperated with the food bank, because the concept of donation that has a content of relationship, as we just said, in many different situations and countries is seen as an element that maybe has less value, that doesn't have a real meaning, because the concept of donation is linked to the fact to an action that is done to counter an emergency, but it doesn't solve the problem. So it is not part of a public intervention. It is interesting to reflect on donations because, for example, let's talk about the waste directive, which is being at the moment translated into national law in many different countries. When we think this way, donation, if it is involved in a structured way, becomes a structural element in terms of prevention of waste and creation of trust. Professor Garrone, you have the floor. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, well, donation, as Marco Piuri was saying, the donation as a structural element of economy and society. Well, I talked about donation in terms of the food chain from production and distribution towards the third sector organizations like the food bank and others that give or distribute these food products to vulnerable, fragile families. Well, this is a structural element. In Italy, the enterprises along the supply chain together with the organization of the third sectors, there are a lot of donations in terms of products, the surplus, that is to say, good products that cannot be marketed anymore, as well as standard products. And another aspect that is extremely important, because this can really be a structural theme, is that enterprises do not donate randomly, and the third sector organizations do not redistribute randomly. About 50% of enterprises in distribution donate 50% in agriculture, 20% in agriculture, and with the different food products for about 2,500 million euros every year. Many different enterprises donate more than 5 tons per year, 500 tons per year. And so this is a very important element. But this is not the final objective. Enterprises donate for social purposes, so they donate goods for free to the third sector organization. A significant part of the people that live in poverty, 5,700,000 people living in absolute poverty, well, 55 or 57% of these people, thanks to these donations and the cooperation between enterprises and the third sector, have access to 1 meal per day. So this is extremely important. Doesn't solve the problem. There are so many other tools in terms of food aid, but they have a lesser impact. So enterprises decided to do this, and then they cooperate with the third sector, but this is not done randomly. Or it's not a matter of donating those products that are not useful anymore. It is just 1% of the whole production. So enterprises are very careful because they have to control their costs and be efficient. And it's maybe more difficult in the agricultural sector, but well, the value is about 1.5% of the production that is donated. So, well, there is a very careful control. It's not the overproduction we talk about so often. The enterprises are extremely careful in terms of efficiency, but enterprises create a process of donation that has a value for them. So a partnership, a cooperation agreement with entities like the food banks and other central and regional level that actually recover these goods. So there is a need for a partnership, for a mutual understanding. Those who make regular donations monitor the flows, measure what is donated or what is included in the circular economy by enterprises. Then there is another aspect. Inside the enterprises, there are people, managers, who are responsible for all these activities, quality control, health control, flows, relationship with the third sector entities. So it is, in a way, a structural aspect that is extremely important for enterprises. So there is a very important and strong impact that cannot be replaced. Donations of food products cannot be replaced as a tool in terms of public policies and food security, because it is the fundamental tool to counter food poverty and food insecurity. Why is this a value? Well, because it creates an image, a reputation. Enterprises are well known because of what they do in terms of donations. So this is a very important social capital. Well, I'll stop here for the moment. Thank you. Well, I think that what we can see is extremely interesting. There is a path, a series of behavior that can become a system in a way, a paradigm. There is still a lot to do. There are enterprises that donate. Well, we didn't have the time today, but it would be interesting to see whether it's the big enterprises or smaller enterprises. Who donates more? It's not just that donations are made because the production process is not well structured. So there are a series of very interesting reflections that we could do. So this is now the time to give the floor to Maria Gadda, who proposed this law 10 years ago, and which was actually presented here at the Rimini meeting before it was actually approved. Well, in order to summarize, what does this law do? It simplifies, it updates existing legislation, creating a legal frame with a series of tools that aim at counter waste, with a solidarity component in order to respond to human needs. So we talk about food, but also other goods. So this is a law that is based on the principles of subsidiarity, solidarity, and free choice. It's a law that does not define an objective, a final objective, with a series of sanctions if this target is not reached. So the law proposes something. So from the fiscal point of view, the law has made equal the destruction of goods with and the donation of the same goods. So then it's a matter of free choice. So there is this fundamental theme. Just to give you a couple of figures, this law defines a platform, a basis, and it is a step forward from the cultural point of view and the point of view of awareness. And it had a big impact in terms of methodology, because it has improved existing legislation through a participating process, and this is a fundamental aspect. So I'll give you just a couple of figures. For the pharmaceutical sector, for instance, in 2015, the pharmaceutical bank had relationships with 28 enterprises. In 2025, we have 75 donating enterprises in this sector, as well as the number of boxes donated to 2.5 million, and recovered pharmaceuticals from 84,000 boxes to 363,000 boxes in 2025. The food bank, let's take a look at the redistribution. In 2016, donations had 4,900 tons. In 2025, we have 24,000 tons. And there has been a leap between 2018, 2019, plus 57%. So in this framework, can you draw some conclusions in terms of what this law did? What can we do now, from now on? Because this tool seems to work well, but it has to continue to work well. Thank you, Marco, and good morning to everyone. These figures show that we made the right choice 10 years ago, and from the political and cultural point of view, it wasn't easy to write a law that it was not based on sanctions and obligations on a theme that is very interesting for so many people. So those products, food products, pharmaceuticals, so these are products that should not be wasted from the economic, social, and environmental point of view. I define a law 166 saying that this is a nice law that has created some kind of sharing pattern. So the surpluses that are created in the supply chain thanks to the action of individuals and groups, thanks to networking and projects, this can become a problem in terms of value, the generational value. There is, in a way, an idea that is at the basis of this law. It is the law against the food waste, but we have so many different products, electronic products, books, pharmaceuticals. From August, we also have flowers, plants, seeds. And what is the meaning of all these? These goods, for different reasons, are in surplus in the supply chain because there is an overproduction, because the demand is low, because there are some very small faults that make them not marketable, or because there is a free choice on the part of the enterprise who wants to donate certain goods to make a difference in society. And then there are trends and fashion elements and big traditions for small and big enterprises. And then there is another aspect that is also part of Law 166, the needs of people. These are more than basic needs products. We have been talking about the goods that should be included in Law 166. We have hamburgers, we have cakes, we have lipsticks, we have perfumes, we have shampoo, we have toys. Are toys a basic need product? I think they are, because playing, non-conventional education is a way to develop more values. And then beauty, to receive a plant or flowers is very important from the social point of view. And this also can build an added value. The right to beauty, the right to personal hygiene, the right to health, well, these are a collective good that should not be based on the fact that someone can afford these products and others can't. So what did this law do 10 years ago? The innovation was the fiscal innovation. We all know the tax system, how it works, but it is not that easy, and this is the reason why I've been traveling throughout Italy together with enterprises and the entities of the third sectors to explain that donation is possible, donation is useful. So the tax level can be seen as a cultural aspect to recognize a behavior, to say that what you donate is on the same level with what can be destroyed, and then building a fiscal system on this. With all the themes that are included in this law, has a meaning also from the cultural point of view. The law 166 is a result of our everyday experience, small realities, the food bank, the pharmaceutical bank. Well, these had already created this system, This law has changed throughout these 10 years in order to respond to new opportunities, the reform of the third sector, for instance. And today we are called upon to do more, because the action plan for social economy is the new perspective of Law 166 on the basis of a social economy that creates value. Surplus can lose their marketing value, but Law 166 explains that the value of goods from the point of view of circular economy, someone defined this law as the first circular economy law in Europe. So the value can be multiplied because the action of the third sector, the different activities of general interest that are also based on the use of the products I mentioned before, make our society richer and better. So it doesn't mean only to respond to certain needs. It also is a creation of new values, of new employment opportunities. So this law is more than just donating products. The pharmaceutical banks, the food bank are not great distributors. They distribute, they create relationships. Law 166 works if there are networking projects, profit, non-profit institutions, and bodies of the third sectors, because we cannot do anything on our own by ourselves. And I believe that these laws can give the better answer, the better reply to this problem. We are all responsible for waste. Every single individual produces waste, but we can also be part of the solution to this problem, because the our way to buy, our way to choose products and to discard other products. Those we don't like can be either donated or destroyed. And there is a difference also in the role that every one of us can play at the European Parliament, in the Italian Parliament, as a representative of the third sector entities. Circular economy and social economy can work if they are part of a structured system. So this is a law that needs to be further developed. And then in the end, I will just give you a few idea that goes in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you. So this was the Italian context summarized quickly. While we were talking about this debate, the Vice President of the European Parliament, Ms. Berla, asked to know, what am I doing here? What does Europe have to do here? Well, it has to do a lot. I won't make a list now of all the reasons why you're here, but European policy is a lively debate in itself between the Commission, the Parliament, and there is an anti-poverty strategy. There is a number of directives concerning waste, for example. The one about waste is being conceived. And as we said before, we are discussing an issue here that combines the social and environmental dimensions. And in the social dimension, of course, the inclusion of relationships plays a fundamental part. And for this very reason, we were talking about structured systems, including companies, citizens, and the third sector world. I don't like to use this term, but that's how it's called. And they all have to collaborate together and to think about these things together. So what is the vision of the European Union institutions, the European Parliament? What do you think are the key points in this kind of challenge? Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, President, for your introduction. And I would like to say hello to all the other guest speakers here with me. Well, we are lagging behind of about 10 years in the European Union with Honorable Gadda. About some days ago, we were talking about this in my hometown to discuss the local impact and what our regional and local authorities are doing Here we have a colleague from the Lazio region that at a regional level, they are implementing all these laws. And the European Union has been lagging behind for 10 years now because we now consider food waste, and it was 2023 when the EC proposed that, and it was approved by the EP in 2025, so less than a year ago. And now we are in the reception stage, and so we are in full swing with our internal debate. So apart from this 10-year delay, we have to say that this topic has been finally considered at a European level, but we are late, and there's also kind of prejudice in a way to consider this, and also considering the people that consider this. We talked about green energy or the bottle taps and so on and so forth. It's all oriented towards waste in itself, waste products. But we want to consider a transformation from waste to resource of food waste. In the case we talk about food waste, but there's also textile. We don't talk about pharmaceutical products, for example. We should also consider that in the directive. So the perspective should be overturned in a way. So despite the delay and despite not being fully focused on the important aspects, we finally have this directive that is going to come to introduce important concepts like measurability. So companies and member states are provided with a temporal framework within which some actions must be taken. And on the other side, there's also the point of donation. So the whole notion of donation in a formal way and in a consultative manner, also the food banks will be included. This is not binding, but they are cited, so they are part of the institutional structure. First, the food banks or the donation structures that could participate in EU economic support programs. Well, now these are institutional actors that are fully fledged actors in this debate, in this reception stage in the member states of the directive. As was mentioned before, and I want to insist on this, we are part of a supply chain. So from waste, from the initial input down to the citizen and the persons. Here we are in a place where the person's at the center. So the food bank is sort of the last subject to benefit from this. And then it is in charge of moving from waste to resource for the people. All the resources that we mentioned are designed to obtain precisely this, to take what is waste, food product or textile product, or in the Italian law there's a greater range of products, down to the people. So the church organizations are involved, other voluntary organizations, parishes are also involved. So all those that can participate in the third sector and that can work together are indeed included and considered. So the next step is an attempt to change paradigm, to shift paradigm. On the one side, we have to implement the directive so people can work on good practices, and Italy can tell us a lot about this, but then a further step can be made. So what can be considered to be changed from food waste to food resource? How can that be done? And how can we include it in the future programs for the European Union? The Circular Economy Act should be ready in the coming months, but today we don't consider food waste in that. So that could be a place, since we talk about circular economy, and because we have companies, as we will listen in a minute, they do circular economy programs. So why shouldn't we consider this in all our proposals without these being further burdens, further obligations for companies, for third sector subjects, and so more complications for the final citizen? We should streamline all these, especially in fiscal terms, and also in terms of the rules that Europe can and should implement. Thank you. I am very delighted to have listened to this presentation delivered by Honorable Sberna, since we understand there is acknowledgement, there is awareness of what we are debating here. It's not a question of technical definitions or designing some practices. It's really a cultural approach that requires a shift, a paradigm shift, and then this should be translated into legislative tools and behaviors. I think that this is a good message and a very interesting challenge. So let's now focus on some part of the network that we have been mentioning. We talked about the relationship between the profit and not-for-profit world, and we have two very interesting cases here. First, we have the Novo Nordisk company, so the healthcare sector. Here with us is the general manager for Italy, Mr. Olesen. So, considering what you have been listening to, comparing this with the policies in your company in terms of social responsibility, sustainability, and fight against the waste, what can you tell us about what you're doing and how what you are doing is within this cultural context and system of relationships, please?
Thank you very much, everyone, for the panel for inviting me and to speak on at this important event. And congratulations, Honorable Gadda, and also for you, Sberna, for actually passing the law and making it easier for us and for you to bring it to the European level in order for us actually to have an easy time as possible to help other people. The foundation of Novo Nordisk, most people don't know, but Novo was created in 1922 based on the love between a husband and a wife. The wife got diabetes, and that was a death sentence back then. And the husband had just won the Nobel Prize in Physiology, so they set out to invent and actually produce insulin, and that saved her life. Now, the importance of this story is not that Marie Kro's life was saved. It was that they decided there and then to give the company away. So they gave Novo Nordisk away to a foundation. And the foundation now owns Novo Nordisk, the company I represent today. In fact, this foundation is the world's biggest. And the foundation gives more money out than any other foundation in the world, even than Gates Foundation that you probably heard of. So those principles of being socially conscious and environmentally conscious are passed down from the foundation to my company that I represent here today. Now, I have worked for Novo Nordisk for 26 years. And the only reason why I'm here 26 years later is because the values of my company represents my values that I have every day in my private life. Of course, privately, I need to earn money in order to pay my rent. But I also want to be a good neighbor. And I don't throw garbage on the street. I pick it up after myself, and I go to the recycling center. And this is how Novo Nordisk is. I have a triple bottom line. I need to earn money for the company, of course, but I actually need to make a social impact that is bigger year after year. And I actually need to do it with less resources and less waste year after year. Novo Nordisk was the first pharma company that 26 years ago actually reported a triple bottom line to the stock exchange. So you can find 26 annual reports already now on how Novo has produced more with less, and how we have been making a bigger and bigger social impact across the world every single year since 26 years ago. Now, I'm just a GM in Italy, but it spills back down to my decision every single day. Every single day, I don't only take financial decisions, I take financial decisions that are socially responsible and that also minimizes the environmental impact. So it's important to have a culture, I think, in companies And my encouragement to all of you here in the audience is, please buy products for the companies that support the food bank, that support projects like this. Because if you vote with your wallets, all of us private companies will follow you. But it starts with you. So please support every one of these. And as politicians, please encourage us as companies. Please make it easy for us as companies to try to help industries like these. Because if you support us and if we all work together, we can actually really make an impact socially, and we can also really make an impact environmentally. So penalize us if we don't do the right thing, but buy our products if you see that we do. Now, just to translate it to what's happening here, I'm very happy and very honored that Novo Nordisk is the first healthcare company ever to be at the Rimini meeting. It speaks volumes, of course, about our company, but it also speaks to our role in a meeting like this. So thank you very much for the organizers to allow us to be here and to have this conversation with everyone that is the meeting here. Now, if you go to our booth, you will see that the science and innovation that we apply every single day is also applied to the booth. My company is trying to change the life of people with obesity and the life of people with diabetes. And we take that very, very seriously. And yes, you can imagine there are a lot of children out there with obesity. In fact, unfortunately, Italy is the country in Europe with the highest prevalence of obesity amongst adolescents. So as politicians, by the way, if you think that you have a problem with obesity today, it's going to explode in the future. So that's also why we're here, and that's also why we are trying to communicate about chronic diseases in the you could say conspice of all of this. But just to give you an example of how we are applying this to this Congress, for those of you who are here, also for the panelists, have a look at our booth. We actually have a capsule where you can go in and you can get a cardiometabolic assessment. You can find out if you have a problem in all confidence. It will be sent to your own email address if you want. But this is a way to help society prevent the coming diseases going forward. And this is a way that we try to put our footprint into prevention and social impact of society. On top of that, we have vulnerability projects where we're giving free of charge medicines to people who fall between the cracks in society. And of course, we also have projects where we collect all our medicines, our insulin pens, for the reuse of the plastics into school products for children in hospitals, or for that matter, chairs that we are sitting on here. So we do a lot of these things, but it can only be done with the people here in the panel, and it can only be done with you as consumers if you support the process.
Grazie, Mr. Olsen.
Thank you, Mr. Olsen.
Io trovo, se posso dirlo...
Before our session, we were talking with Mr. Olsen, and he was telling us how impressed he was of the presence of people in the meeting. He said that there's a real people where heart is visible. And at the end of the day, what you have talked about is the heart, working for 26 years in a company, because the values of the company are the same that have been guiding your personal life. Well, this tells us what we always mention in this context, that is that to change the world, we have to work on ourselves, and our heart must change. But in this path towards the change in our heart, where we have responsibilities in different fields, well, playing the full game is really what you have been mentioning. So I want to thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. It will be very useful in the future to continue this collaboration, especially in the health sector. I'm getting old, so longevity to me is a dear topic, a concrete topic. So pardon me for this digression. Well, we can talk about that, yes, of course. And we now give the floor to Amazon Web Service, our last guest speaker, Mr. Spicciariello. We talk about a very big reality here. There's no need here to introduce this company, but within it, there are resources and potential that can be deployed in a way that if it is included in the topic that we are discussing, well, a big boost can be given for more sustainable development. So there's possibilities in the development of technological solutions, in the logistics. This is one of the key elements that must be considered. Thank you all, and thank you, President. Well, before getting to the stage, the President was talking about what Amazon Web Services does. And to me, the topic was actually important for a personal level, because I took a PhD in civil engineering, and a professor said, it is strange that you study civil engineering and you work in a big tech. And I said, I don't agree with you, Professor, because the point is not whether the market creates value for itself, by itself, or for the company. But the question is how to bring this value not just to the market, but also to the people with which we interact, with whom we interact. And it is the role of the people that matters within a company, even more so in a multinational company where every country has their own features and has their own different relationships with people and with the third sector. We are a big company, we are a multinational corporation, and one might think that waste is only considered as a lack of efficiency. In fact, even for a company, waste is a resource if the persons in need for that resource are then met. So I would like to start with the technological part. As Amazon Web Services, our approach is oriented to this. It is the cloud. We have been talking about a lot about the energy consumption and waste for a data center management. Now the new generation data centers consume 98% less energy than the servers that are kept under a desk or old generation's data center. And consider that 99% of the servers that are used, of the racks, are recycled to build others. A great percentage of the plastic that is used is also recycled. It is bio-based at the construction stage. So everything is designed in this way, and everything is designed to limit waste 360 degrees, because limiting energy waste can also have a social impact, not just for us as a company, but for all the other people. And often, there is another aspect that is mentioned in the third sector. I started working in a third sector reality, and often there is a sort of allergy against talking about technology. People don't understand the added value that technology can bring in terms of new resources, innovation, possibility of change, and obtaining resources. Let me give you some examples. I was reading work by the Politecnico talking about donations. An important point is not just the amount available, but the donation system works well when there's greater resources. What does it mean that it works well? It means that there's capacity of interactions, there is technological closeness, and logistics can help in this respect. But now technology allows us to create systems that can help third sectors and companies that are not even familiar with the law concerning donations. We talked about that with Honorable Gadda and with others. So there is this willingness to give more, but sometimes people are skeptical in the third sector, and this is a kind of cultural block that we should try to overcome. there's also worries sometimes, but I think it's still due to a lack of knowledge. For example, about data. Yesterday, I read an interesting article by Tony Davecchia in L'Avvenire, and this article was about the construction of data cooperatives that can work as intermediaries in guaranteeing safety of data for technology. And for me, in Amazon, this concerns me directly because we provide the necessary infrastructure for the third sector, but even for the whole country. Remember that if there is no development, all the other resources cannot get downstream. So this is an issue that must be considered from the very first moment, how to govern the data. So in the coming weeks, it will be interesting to hear how this debate can be further addressed. And then the last point I would like to mention is that since 2021, we have been building a program for logistics in Amazon that reached 35,000 families for 8 million euros in terms of the food bank. So the same infrastructure, technologically and logistically, can generate these resources and bring them down to the end of the stream. Honorable Gadda would say that better than I can, and donation is good insofar as it gets to the end receiver, because good intentions are not enough. Thank you. Thank you very much. A lot of interesting stimuli, not just stimuli, these are concrete actions that are being developed and growing. And we are trying and talking about a method. So let's try to stick to the 1 hour slot that we were assigned. So now I'll try to ask you something very challenging. So 1 minute. This is something I have never been able to do as I was invited as a guest speaker. But in 1 minute, I will invite you to launch a final call, a challenge, a priority. So having said what we have said, what is the take-home message that you want to convey in closing our session? Mr. Olson, you have the floor first.
I will do it in less than 1 minute.
Okay.
It takes all of us. It takes every one of the ones here on stage. It takes all of you. It takes all of you in the audience to come and work together and actually to make the foundation that can change all of this support for the patients, all of this for the support of people who are vulnerable in society.
Ok. Bene, quindi è una...
Repeat or are you okay?
Sorry, no, è un chiaro invito.
So it's a clear invitation to take your own responsibilities. Franco Spiceriello. Well, I would like, first of all, to thank Honorable Gadda for this law, but also because she showed that from the institutional point of view, and we are talking here to the Vice President Spena, we are good at writing laws when we know what we're talking about. So this is the proof that we have a method with this law 166. We can make a comparison with France, where they have chosen to go towards sanctions, and we have had much better results. I work in Paris, and I had the opportunity to discuss this with our French counterpart, and they do not accept that we have had a much better result than they had. So this is my message to institutions. Let's use this approach. Let's use incentives rather than sanctions. And for instance, for digital infrastructures, there is a debate undergoing now in Brussels. There is a there is the Cloud and AI Development Act, which is about to be issued, that makes whose focus is what the enterprise or the company does with a series of guarantees in terms of infrastructures. Well, the risk here is to undermine a great part of our future because there won't be many investments going out from Italy and Europe. And then there is another aspect on strategic investments. The Italian government did a very good work with a new law for big investments like that of the bridge in Genoa. And if there is a directive, a regulation coming from Brussels, which is not very well devised, could actually suffocate these investments rather than encourage them. Without these investments, we will have no digital health. We won't have health at all. We won't have development. We won't have schooling. And so we have to talk about this added value for those who understand this digital infrastructure. So we have to take on our responsibilities and help people to develop and go forward, but these investments need to be promoted by the institutions. So, well, yes, responsibility, and let's take a chance on freedom because we need to create tools. Antonella Sberna, Vice President. Well, we have a lot of things to do, so many tasks that we have to perform. Well, just to summarize my former intervention, a change, a shift of paradigm in terms of food waste through an environmental aspect. So it has to be part of the waste directive with a new vision from a social perspective and a perspective of fight against poverty. So we need to work with our colleagues in the European Parliament, with the Commission. We should not forget that, yes, we have three parties at the head of the union, but they have to work together so that what it is decided is actually beneficial for European citizens. So the new programs, the European Social Fund, the Circular Economy Act, and everything that is part of the new budget that will be passed as a law on the 1st of January 2028. So we have many things we can do. So we invite Italian and European banks that work in the right way, and they do this work in a very participated way. I ask them to come to Brussels to tell us what they're doing in the different countries, to promote the Italian example. And this is actually the right moment to do so because, as it was said, the waste directive is being translated into national laws, and this is the right moment to bring about this paradigm shift, including institutions, companies, enterprises, and the third sectors, and all those that are involved in creating a new cultural approach, which we would like to adopt to solve this problem. So it is an invitation to go to Brussels, and we will take up this invitation. So responsibility, freedom, but then methodology as well. Marica Gadda. Law 166 was approved by unanimity, as well as all the amendments that were approved in the following years, because it was shared by the subject who will have to then apply this law, which was approved with a single hearing, and then the Senate decided to approve it. This is what I ask for: three proposals that we will have to include in the law on the budget, which should be approved by the Parliament. First, to cancel the fact that it is forbidden to donate substances that include psychotic pharmaceuticals. So there are some extraordinary uses in Italy, but as well as in war areas. So the theme of mental health is stronger today than it was. Then we have to remove bottlenecks that make donations very often something difficult, and it is difficult to match demand and offer. So this bottleneck today is that of logistics. The recovery opportunity, we have very advanced legislations in terms of good donation, money donation, the code of the third center, donations of skills, the rule on the enterprises, and then the donation of logistic services, transportations, digital platforms, things that are already present in our country but are not acknowledged. And then there is the third proposal on my part, food, specifically fresh food products cannot be recovered if there are no fridges, no cooling containers, and this is extremely important. So, well, a tax credit could be an idea in order to make proposals that can be actually applied in reality, making these processes real and creating what you are creating every day with Law 166. And I thank you for this, because your everyday life and what was really the biggest gift that we could have had, because we really saw that things were done in everyday life. So this is something very important for us. Thank you. Tell me what I have to sign for these three proposals. I'm ready to sign right now, especially on the very last point, because with the activity that we carry out, the idea to be able to have the resources we need to do better and to be more efficient. Professor Garrone, the great challenges of today, access to food, access to health, needed to be tackled together. No one can overcome these economic, social, and environmental challenges on their own. So I do believe that the bank actually represents what has emerged from our conversation today. So there is a network that includes different actors, and it's not just like that we are stronger together. There is a need to cooperate, so enterprises do what they have to do in terms of offering products, creating logistics, products that are healthier and healthier, because it is another theme that has been touched upon today. So the third sector has this great opportunity to connect other realities and be present in making very clear that there are emergencies that are different, but we have also some tools we can resort to, like the policies that were described here today that can be used and improved. So let me say that also the university can play an important role, because there is a theme of new knowledge, new understanding that goes beyond different ideologies in terms of what economy can do and what's the relationship between society and economy. And there is the role of education, because without human capital that is ready, nothing can be done. Nothing of what we talked about could be done. Professor Venturi, just three words. The first is sympathy, in a way that comes from the Greek word pathos, that means sharing a passion. And this is something important because value today is based on sharing. So from the legislative point of view, my first call to action would be, let's issue laws that include resources that are based on individuals, but also on the relationships between individuals, because this encourages cooperation. Second, the second word is social economy. Let's make an effort. The social responsibility is something clear to every one of us, as it is the goodwill, and we need to move from this logic to a new way of thinking based on social economy. This calls for the creation of value, also from the economic point of view, and economy, as Jens Olsen was saying, is based to the common good. We cannot think that the common good is the sum of individual goods. No, it is actually the sharing of the common good itself. So social economy. Europe gave us a mandate. Italy made its own plan. Let's now put it into practice. Food banks, pharmaceutical banks, they are not only actors of the third sectors. And then another term, another word, social impact. It was very clearly explained. So this is seen as some form of reporting. Well, this is something that is based on activities that have to be redesigned, rethought. Also, in terms of data, we have to make a change, because, as it says, if we use the wrong indicators, we will reach the wrong results. So the theme of the social impact needs to be in the work that every one of us carries out. Thank you. So it's quite late. I will not try to draw any conclusions, and I wanted to say more than it has already been said. For me, this meeting today has shown that there is already an important path that has been created, where there is a need of a shift of paradigm, and I think there are all the elements, all the conditions necessary to make this happen. So this is a responsibility that each one of us needs to take on. We have ingredients, we can prepare a cake together. And to close, we talked about donation. So I would just like to remind you that you can support the meeting of Rimini, creating places of beauty and hope. This is a very good example. So you can find the Dona Ora stations. You can donate. You can have fiscal benefits, because the meeting is an entity of the third sector. So this is some kind of coherence with what we said today. I would like to thank once again all our guests. Franco Sticceriello, Gempi Olesen, Paolo Venturi, Paola Garrone, Maria Chiara Gadda, and Antonella Sverna. Thank you.
C'ha la foto?
Questo è un luogo che genera dialogo,
Qualcuno che si impegna, che si batte.
che approfondisce la conoscenza e sostiene la fiducia. È un crocevia dove si incontra chi desidera il vero, il bello, il giusto e il bene. È una testimonianza di speranza nel cuore ferito del presente. E tutto questo
proporre con la propria vita
esiste anche grazie a te.